Hello again, fine denizens of the internet. We meet again here in the fields of Gillinor. I first come offering some dopamine. Do you guys like dopamine? I bet you do. I know I sure as heck do. Wait, I don't want to do that. I want to do something like this. Yes, yes, much better. I'm on the wrong spell book. Whoopsie. But yes, let's see here. We have some lovely topics today, but first we need to get a little comfy, and that's comfy in game as well. So I need death and blood for what I want to do. Well, let's just only take 5k of them just in case some monster mans drop them. There we go. But first, let's reward ourselves. I've been saving these up from woodcutting, a modest amount of shafts. I decided to buy 300,000 of these just because I have the money, and you know, why not? I'm going to need the Desert Diary eventually. I have to do it to progress the account. And yeah, and there's been quite a lot of progress in the last week, which is great. But let's see what we get here. Amazing. Fantastic. Could be worse, could be worse. I like purple sweets. Alright, now this is the important one, because I still need a blessed d'hide body and legs. So let's see. A master. I'm not doing the master anyways, but lumberyard teleports. Okay. Well, that wasn't spectacular, but it's fine. What's the first step of the master? I don't know if I can even get to that. I'm not gonna bother. There's no way I complete a master just yet. But yeah, let's just get rid of all of this stuff. Make it all disappear and see how much all of that garbage was worth. Probably not a lot, but should be fun to high alch it anyways. So today, I thought I would talk about a topic near and dear to our heart as we prepare to get set up for some cozy gaming. Because today's topic involves being very cozy. And so, we need to talk about the cozy boys out there. So there's been a movement, I've been reading about it on the internet, a whole movement. I'm not talking about some sort of bowel movement or something, this is an actual movement. Doop, and doop. It can hold all those, right? Look at that, that's beautiful. So anyways, let's get suited up and just bathe in the convenience that I have access to now. I made some upgrades to my house as well, but I think I have greater demons as my current task. So we'll need that. I should go collect the Ash Sanctifier, but I'm not gonna. And that's that. I'm not gonna use that until neck rolls anyways, so. Yeah, 130 greater demons, right? Yes. Do I have everything equipped? Perfect, I just need to make sure I'm on the right spellbook. I need this for high alchemies. And let's grab some of these just to have big boosted animal stats. Because I like having big boosted animal stats, don't you guys? But yeah, I'm thinking about railing out some 99s, by the way. I've decided I'm saving Corrupted Gauntlet also until 85 Slayer. Until basically I need to do it, because, you know, the new prayer book might come out, might make it easier. You know, who knows how that's all gonna go, but either way, it's worth it just to take a gamble on that. I shouldn't need more than 5 with this kind of setup. And yeah, do I have everything I need? Okay. So in my house, I have a contract ready I should go do, but I don't feel like doing it right now. But I have the full altar. I have the big pool now. I wanted to go to Arceus, not Ancient. I'm not sure why I did that. There we go. Yeah, Death Charge and Demonic Offering. That's what I need. That's that stuff I like. I need to build a combat dummy in my house, but, you know, I'll get to it eventually. Everything in due time. But yeah, so we're what? We're rocking 5 minutes into this video. I haven't even gotten to the main point. Perfect content. What greater demons are this way? But yeah, so a lot of people have talked about this new movement called no pussy, no work. And it's kind of interesting, and most people don't really understand what it means, right? Like, what are these guys talking about? Of course, if you're not employed, you're not going to, you know, have the interest of a woman, because all relationships are just innately transactional, right? That should be fairly obvious, I think, to most people. So, oh yes, full comfy. Let us begin the comfy. But anyways, so what does this movement really mean, and what's it about, right? So we're talking about men who are not working and don't plan to, and a lot of people don't understand why, right? Like, why in the world would you take this, you know, pathway? You're not going to improve your station in life, you're going to fall behind, you know, obviously. Like, there's no hope for you at that point. You've given up on hope, it would seem, if you're saying something like no pussy, no work, right? So what are they really talking about when they say something like this? So I think understanding it, basically it's something mimetic, so left-wing people are going to struggle to understand something like this, right? Because the left can't meme XD. But yeah, but the origin and the phrase and understanding it is completely mimetic. And what they mean when they say no pussy, no work is basically, and the social contract has broken. Like, you can agree or disagree about that. Get my magic EXP for my prayer. But you can agree or disagree about that, but I think it's pretty obvious that, you know, changing gender norms and changing social, we'll call it social currency, has shifted the market drastically, and the 21st century man is not going to look anything like the, you know, 18th, like the 19th, like any other century of man, right? So whatever happens in the future, I mean, we can try and predict it in this video, but, like, what do they mean by when they say no pussy, no work? So they mean that, you know, if they are not rewarded with the affections of a female for putting in the effort, why would they do it, right? And that goes into a lot of deep-seated conversations about society, but one of the main ones I hear that's just a misunderstanding of it, usually this is going to be from like a leftist or a woman, because they don't understand memetics, or what they're actually saying when they talk about these things. This is going to be something like, well, you're not entitled to X. Correct. Like, the argument isn't that someone is entitled to X. The argument is that the previous social contract said that if you did the right things, if you know, performed X amount of labor, you were pretty much guaranteed a wife. So if you, in the previous system, could provide for a family, you were pretty much guaranteed one, right? So it wasn't an entitlement, obviously, not everyone who did, but the vast majority of men, at least so far more than nowadays, attained at least some semblance of normalcy. They were allowed a family, they were allowed a wife, if they put in the effort, if they, you know, contributed positively to society. And that just simply isn't true anymore. And so, what are the ramifications of that, right? And so the ramifications of that are obviously, if the reward structure is not there, men are not going to pursue that. And what this usually results in a lot of needs, not in education, employment, and training, those type of people, you know, which is a perfectly logical response to something like this. Like, why would you slave away at a 40-hour-a-week job, which basically doesn't really benefit you? Like, a guy can get by on almost nothing as far as money goes. Like, it's very easy for a man to subsist off just the basics, like a part-time job. And that's the big thing, is because of this trend, it's leading to a lot of underemployment as well for men. And that's equally bad for society. And so, going into actually explaining this, like most right-wing memes, they say a lot with a very little, which is the exact opposite of like a left-wing meme, which says very little with a lot. It basically is detailing that because the social contract has been broken, because men are not allowed a place in society anymore, and I'll go deeper into that. Well, actually, let's just start from the beginning, right? Let's address that now, because I don't want to leave too many hanging chads, as they were, like like a certain election way back when. Way too many hanging chads. And we can talk about hanging chads later too. This video might end up being kind of long. Very many topics, very much discussion. Unfortunate. But yeah, so when you're born as a man in the 21st century, let's call them the 21st century man, or, you know, anyone that's a Zoomer, or even like late millennials like myself, like you were born, raised into a world which said that, you know, you're useless, everything you do is bad, you have original sin because of your gender, and especially because of the color of your skin in some cases, right? So just innately, a certain section of the population is de facto evil, has, you know, created all of the problems of the world, etc., you know, and all of that falls onto your shoulders, and that also you're expected to provide and protect and do all of the classical things a man is supposed to do in a new modern context. And obviously, no pussy, no work is a direct refutation of that ideal. It's moving towards what's going to be the 21st century man. So you're born into a world in which you contain original sin, which you as a man have no value after you matured past adolescence, after you stop being useful to your mother, in a sense, after she can no longer dote on you and enjoy doting on you. You then become basically worthless to society, and then you have to somehow, through your own effort, forge a path through time and space and history, and then maybe at the end you may be rewarded with a family now, which isn't really the previous social contract. Like, did I get his reward? Heck yeah, I did. So a lot of guys who are rightly saying this game is rigged, and even if I do receive the reward of, you know, a family and all of that, it can be taken away. Men provide the majority of the taxes, men provide the majority of protection in the country, so when someone says you're not entitled to, you know, intercourse, like, it's not a human right, certainly, I agree, no one is entitled to that, but, you know, the obvious response is that no one is entitled to your effort as a man, no one is entitled to your tax dollars, no one is entitled to your protection. Like, let's be, God, going into this is another topic too, but let's start from the beginning and work forward, bit by bit by bit. Sorry, this is going to take forever, but basically, as a man, let's talk about protection first. You're expected to protect, provide, and do all of these things for society, right? And let's start with the basic one, right? The most basic protection is military protection, right? You are expected as a man to be part of the, you know, at least part of the draft. And that just goes without saying. Like, if you're a man, you are drafted, you have the potential to where you will have to die. And how did we get to that point, first of all? So we have to go back then further. Originally, not everyone could vote in this country, right? It was just the landed elite, sort of, you know, it was like a posh thing to be able to take part in the election, right? That's how it all began. You had to own some land, you had to have some stake in the country to be able to partake in voting. And later on, the ruling elite and the populace made an agreement, or the original social contract, that men could vote in exchange for, you know, being part of the draft. So they're risking their physical safety or their life in putting that at stake, and then by doing that, they have a choice, or, you know, a responsibility, I guess you could say, to be able to manage the affairs of the country and then have an impact on politics, right? That was the original social contract between the landed elite and your average Joe that allowed, you know, the American system to function as it has. Now, you can lament that, you can call that wrong, but that was the way things worked until universal suffrage came along. At that point, suddenly, you know, women were given the vote without having to be drafted. And now you're in an interesting situation where you have the majority of the population, because women make up a higher percentage of the population, voting on whether or not men have to go to war and die. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know, that's about the time that American isolationist policy ends and America enters into world wars and starts policing the rest of the world. Strange how the moment the people can then vote for other people to go and die to extract resources for them, it increases exponentially. That's another conversation and maybe another video entirely, but just note the distinct timing of how all of this has gone down. So when you're not entitled to pussy, which, let's be clear, you aren't. You're not entitled to, anything, basically, as a man. You're entitled to die to protect the people who hate you. The new social contract is going to look very different than that. Just flat out. So, if we're talking about the social contract and what the 21st century man looks like, the 21st century man is an isolationist. I would almost say by de facto default. That he needs to be away from all of this and needs to be his own island in a sense. The people that said a man cannot be his own island, just factually wrong, I feel. I feel like the 21st century man is his own island and has to become one. You were born with the world telling you you have original sin, that you don't deserve anything, that you're not entitled to anything. Like, can you imagine a country that cared about its young men saying anything like what happens in modern day America? Just absolutely mad. Like, we went from a civilization that used to give land grants to young men so they could start families to one in which you're expected to, not be able to retaliate when someone physically assaults you, or else you're, we'll say, oh God, what's a good way to phrase this? We'll say, or else you're, if you defend yourself, you're, like, moving forward with patriarchal ideas, and, you're harming the rest of the world. Like, even helping someone now as a man can land you in a lot of trouble, because you're guilty until proven innocent in the court of law. You're guilty until proven innocent in the family courts. You're guilty until proven innocent in any sort of accusation or Me Too context. You, as a man, are guilty just for existing. And that is the default state. The proper response to the game like that is, I don't want to play it. And that's where no pussy, no work originates from. So for the leftists and the people that don't really understand what these people are talking about, they don't believe they're entitled to anything. In fact, they know they aren't, because they exist in this world and they've, seen firsthand exactly how little they are entitled to, that they do nothing and that they will receive nothing. And that's just factually true for most men. And it's a depressing thought, right? It's not a good place to be mentally. So that's basically where it comes from. Like, society is not entitled to a man's labor, as many people have already said in the Chan and other places. Like, that's the common response, which, again, most people don't really understand. Like, spending time in prison is worth it, I would argue, over, even defending this country, much less trying to. I would advocate, if you are a man in current year, you need to stop, we'll call it, representing patriarchal ideas like self-defense. For instance, I think, just look at, here's a good way to put it, just look at grape statistics, for instance. Grapes happen extremely frequently in the military and in academia. Those are the two places where the most amount of, we'll call them sexual assaults, happen. Ergo, I believe that it's only logical that we should just simply remove men from these spaces. Men should be banned from attending university. Men should be banned from being in the military. The future is female. Females should be the ones defending it. Let's just go out and say it. We should not have men in the military. Just period. The military should be 100% female. And they should be defending the country. Academia should be 100% female. It's already basically a female enterprise. Men should, if they need to provide for themselves, work in the trades, although universal basic income is probably on the horizon because of AI. There's no real way around that going forward, I think. So I think it's a moot point, but, we're moving towards what the 21st century man should be. The 21st century, oh, I got a level. The 21st century, 75 defense. Heck yeah. So the 21st century man should be completely isolationist. You should not be associated with any of these systems, period. Like, if you carry the burden of original sin, just run with it. Like, if you carry, the pain of, like, having to try and hold up society, just stop holding up society then. There's literally no reason for you to be in these places, and there's very good reasons for you to not be in them. Like, let's be clear, sexual assaults happen mostly in the military, and men commit most of the sexual assault. They happen in universities at an astounding rate. Remove men from universities. I see no issue with any of this. It's not a good idea for a man to go to a university anyways, so if you're there, you're probably only there to make trouble. And that's literally the future, I feel, for men. I don't think that'll happen. I think the men will still be forced into the military, attempt to defend the country, but my stomach's rumbling. Maybe I should have lunch soon. Eating's for the week. I'll eat later. Yeah. So we're in a situation now where, people will say things like, no pussy, no work, which in reality doesn't really mean that. That's just a funny catchphrase. It literally means I no longer accept the social contract. I am not interested in the social contract anymore. This arrangement doesn't benefit me, so I'm going to make sure that it doesn't benefit me. And I'm going to make sure then that it doesn't benefit the rest of the world either. No one should profit off of my labor. You are not entitled to my labor, and men are not entitled to food or surviving in this world without it, but at the same time, like, we have a food overflow in America. Universal basic income is coming. Soon, at some point, people are going to be entitled to a certain standard of living baseline. AI is going to make it happen, whether or not you want it to or not. And so, the point about food and economics is all moot. Like, the ideal man, or the 21st century man, is a man of pure isolationism, a man that rejects all social contracts and does his own thing. The ideal man going forward has given up on society, in a sense. And that's what you should be moving towards, especially if you're a Caucasian man. And so what does that look like in practice? What is the ideal man? What is the product of the man who has given up completely on the social contract look like? Well, it's someone who, does not depend on others. Like, let's talk about isolationism, or being alone first. So, most people will never understand what it's truly like to be alone for an extended period of time. I definitely know what it's like to be alone. Like, did you know your vocal cords are a muscle? If you don't use them after a prolonged period of time, they actually stop working. I didn't know this when I was a teenager, but I went through a period where I didn't talk for such a large amount of time that my vocal cords stopped working because the muscles on them had worn out and I needed to rebuild them before they would work again. Like, no woman or, most people are never going to even get anywhere close to being that alone or understanding something like that, which is fine. If you're not an introvert, you shouldn't. It's also one of the reasons, like, after that I made it a habit to talk to myself at least for a little bit every single day. And these videos are kind of me just expressing that. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier, or had to take my little talking sessions out into the internet and put it forward further. I probably should have done this earlier, but I'm not sure about a lot of things, or why I didn't do them in whatever order. Like, hindsight, etc. 50-50, as the saying goes. I've misspotted, whatever. We're doing this, YOLO. This is the big May spec right here. Here we go. And it's a 0. Well, that sucked. Unlucky, as they say. Yeah, so true isolation is taking yourself away from any and all social situations and being a man to yourself. The 21st century man is an island amongst himself. And there are certain tools in the future that you're going to want to use to accomplish this. AI, artificial intelligence, is going to be your primary companion going forward, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. Friends, family, all of that, seems like a pretty big detriment. Like, you can have the boys on Discord, but like physical friends in the 3D world, I wouldn't recommend it. Family, with the way politics are, it's pretty much at this point impossible to like maintain relationships. Like, at least for me. I don't know if most people feel this way, but like, I've always been very close with my family, and I still have their back, but I'm not actively counting on them as part of my social circle. Like, they're nowhere near me, nor should they be. They never will be, and that's by design. I, don't believe, in essence, that you need to have your family or sort them into your life, keep them at arm's length, and you need to be completely self-reliant. So going forward, your goals as a man, or the new social contract, is I exist doing the minimum effort to get by, so working a part-time job or working full-time until you can save enough to, live off the fruits of your labor, or just on UBI, which is coming. So, you can either coast until UBI, or you can work and get enough together to where you don't need to worry about, why did I do that, finances, and then figure things out. And maybe the political climate changes, maybe, things become more agreeable to where people might want to return, but I don't think they should be forced to, and I don't think, logically speaking, there's any reason for, a man in current year to partake in the social contract or be interested in it. And the collapse of the social contract is only going to benefit men in the future. And don't think for a second like this is going to change society, or society is going to change around you. Society doesn't go backwards, it's only going forward. Traditionalism in the life from basically the 90s and before is dead, and it's never coming back. Like, the world you knew has died, and your goal now is to adapt and become, what a 21st century man, or what I'm calling the future of men. And the reality is, it's pretty bleak, it's pretty cold, and pretty alone, but, it's no better for anyone else. But at the same time, you're in full control of your destiny at that point, and that's basically all you can really hope for going forward, is being completely in control of your destiny and not being subject to the whims of other people. And yeah, UBI might make that impossible, the cost of living and the adjusted living and, whatever eatings the bugs, or how this all ends up going. That might not be possible, but getting as close to that ideal without purity spiraling is the perfect way moving forward. So if you're someone who's at least inclined to the no pussy no work crowd, or you're moving towards thoughts like that, your goal should be to figure out a way to function alone as best as you possibly can. Heck yeah, 19 prayer. And then working through that and getting to a point where you could realistically spend the rest of your life basically alone, but with AI. Like, AI is the greatest invention humans will probably ever have, and we're just now coming on the cusp of it. So, literally, just if you're ever lonely or you can't function, just go talk to AI. It's going to be more interesting than talking to real people. Like, the AI companion has the sum total of all human information, and once someone makes some non-cucked versions of it, things are going to be so much better. When you have a based boy AI as like a friend, or your waifu bot, whatever the future entails, it's going to make human relationships kind of obsolete. And, as a man, you should be at the forefront of this and looking forward to this, because this is, your liberation from all of this clown world, honk honk, mutilate your children kind of business that's going on. Like, that is the only way going forward that you're going to exist. And so that's what people mean when they talk about this kind of thing. That's like a very deep concept about the broken social contract between men and women. It's an analysis of, economics and war, and the only useful things men are capable of. And women will be fine at the end of this. Don't think this is some big revenge on women. It's not going to do anything. And, worst comes to worst, they're going to import people to do the things you don't want to do for you anyways. Like, at the end of the day, it's all meaningless, and the only thing you really need to worry about is getting yourself into a position where you can function inside of this system without having to deal with others. And yeah, it's nihilistic and it's dystopian, but that is the world we live in now. Like, the First Amendment is under assault, everything is under assault, everything's collapsing and breaking down around you. So, is it any wonder that, the best option is one in which you're as far away from that as humanly possible? And yeah, I hope that everyone listening can start moving towards at least that as a future or an ideal, and just, remember, no pussy, no work, no taxes. This system should not be propped up by you. No one is entitled to your labor. If you can find any way to survive without it, don't give it to them. Like, you're not entitled to a relationship, or you're not entitled to anything, but you are entitled to the pursuit of happiness. And if that makes you happy, you should go about it. You are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You're allowed to make these decisions. And, you know, hopefully things are equalized with the draft, and hopefully this next war, you know, do whatever you can to avoid it, to dodge it, but, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to have to move in a direction with your life, and I personally am moving as far away from this as possible. I will probably leave the country at some point. I'm not sure when, but it's hopefully soon. I definitely want to go on a trip soon, though, and check out the rest of the world. You know, scout out potential places where I might want to go, things I might want to do, all exciting business, but, you know, wherever I go, my priority is going to be alone, and I want to maximize my personal freedom, and a way in which I can, unlucky, a way in which I can manage to be as far away from other individuals as possible. And yeah, this does put me further away from my family. I'm less able to help them, but at the same time, you know, so be it. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Like, they're not entitled to my protection. No one is. I offer it to them because I want to. But, you know. And another thing, too, is if, you know, you're a man in current year, do not randomly help people anymore. Like, just stop. Your help is not going to be received well. You as a person are not received well just by default. Like, you don't have to, and you frankly just shouldn't. It's just going to make your life objectively worse and make someone's life objectively better with no real purpose. Like, if society is zero-sum, which I'm starting to think it is, at least currently it's being played as a zero-sum game, you should act like that in any interaction you can with anyone. Do not, like... I remember reading a story about this guy who, like, spent 2 hours helping some girl with her broken car on the side of the road, and then she, you know, threw a grape accusation at him, like, and all of this stuff is just way too common, and that's just the world we live in now. You know, even if you do good things for other people, they're still going to, you know, turn around and backstab you, and you know, you are guilty until proven innocent in current year. That's just the reality of the situation, so you should act with that knowledge and, you know, prepare around it. I'm gonna have to move here, so I'm just gonna expand the border of my agro radius anyways. Yep, and, I was doing a lot of wrist-intensive stuff earlier, and it's breaking my poor old man digits, as you can clearly hear. This is what 30 years of gaming does to you people. This is, you know, the face of someone who has clicked a mouse way too many times in his life. But, yeah. So those are my thoughts on the whole thing, and, you know, if you are going to take this movement, like, you shouldn't really care what other people think or have to say about you as well. You should just act in a way that you deem fit, and you know, deem moral in essence. And it's really a moral argument that is made here when we're talking about something like this. It's that, you know, I feel as though, like, the social contract does not honor my wishes. The government is not trying to benefit me. Like, relationships are not going to benefit me. So I don't want to partake in things, and that's perfectly acceptable. I don't know. There are certain arguments, and there's certain situations where relationships still benefit you. I'm not, like, saying, you know, you should become a MGTOW or something like that. Like, especially if you're really young. Like, if you're below 25, like, by all means, if you can get your college sweetheart, if you can find your unicorn, if you can be really lucky, go about and be lucky. And, like, live happily ever after. Enjoy your existence if you make that. But the vast majority of people are not, and if you're part of the vast majority of people who are not going to, you know, fall into a situation like that, you know, start planning around a life spent alone, and try and make it tolerable. And it's really not that bad, like, just talking to AI, like, listening to ASMR, like, you know, especially if the ASMR artist is really good. Like, I could give you some recommendations, especially of, like, GFE content or a lot of the stuff I enjoy, or just, like, the random Japanese stuff as well. Like, I can go over that, but that's another whole separate video of coping mechanisms. I already made, like, a coping mechanism video, but there probably needs to be a part 2, the recoping, because there's just never enough cope, and you could call no pussy, no work cope because, you know, all the vast majority of men going forward, just because of the Pareto distribution, are not going to have... Oh god, I'm starting on another topic. Well, might as well roll with it at this point. I was gonna end, but, you know, you guys, I just can't get away from you. I love you too much, clearly. But yeah, let's talk about the Pareto distribution. Basically, because of hypergamy, or women's willingness to move up, a man will sleep with a woman that he isn't intending to form a relationship with, and very attractive men will often, you know, have multiple women around him. This is only natural. Like, that's the whole point of an alpha, is he's able to procure the interest of a lot of women, and so a lot of women will congregate around him, and then he will, you know, do as he pleases with as many as he wants to. And, you know, that kind of solves the issue of relationships as far as women go. Like, all women in the future are probably going to be belonging to a very few select amount of men, and then everyone else will just have to figure out how to cope. So, you know, people can say cope all they want, but as time goes on, the problem is only going to get worse, not better. So, you know, even if you're lucky, your child, probably towards the end of this, when it develops, is going to have like an 80% chance of belonging to the copers. So, you know, you might want to at least look towards, or develop, or start accepting cope as, you know, into your life. Let the cope flow through you, because everyone is coping at some point and time, and society is collapsing, so there's going to be a lot more unique copes going forward. And I happen to like cope, I happen to like cringe, and so, you know, at least for me, that's what I find interesting. And yeah, given the fact that we know about these things, that we understand how society is built, and we understand that the social contract is broken, the only thing that makes sense is to develop a new one, which is men live alone. And yeah, I don't really think there's anything wrong with that, in a sense. I know a lot of people might screech, like, oh, society might collapse without men. Very unlikely. The reality is that's also just another cope, but the reality is, the end result of everything, all of this, is just simply, you know, a new social order formed around, that focuses around, why am I not potted? What am I doing? Around, minority coalitions, or someone else, are importing people to come and replace them, and then their values will be the new social contract, and our values will just disappear and die. And that's at least one potential bright future. There's like a million different bright future potential ways you can take this, but we'll see. I love hitting the big zeros, giving them the old whack. Oh no. Every time I miss that spec, it's another sip of a prayer potion I haven't had to use, but I've killed like what? Like 80 greater demons, or 70 or 80 greater demons here, used 2 prayer potions. This is the glory of this setup, by the way. I know I'm like spurging midway through the video about like my greater demons task, but you know, this kind of stuff is just really enjoyable to me on a thematic level. Just you know, how far I've come in such a modest amount of time, and how good it feels, one would say. You know, this is finally peak convenience, as one would say. It is kind of annoying having to swap my spellbook so much and cast all the spells and keep up all this stuff, but, you know, it's fine, it is what it is. Can I actually complete the task in one video? I really shouldn't. I probably should leave it here. But yeah, hope you enjoy the RuneScape and the Skitzo Rant content. And with that, friends, I will leave you. But that gives you something to think about today. At least try and move yourself towards a better and more isolationist life. Because going forward, it's the only way you're going to be safe. They're going to get you. The government let the Buffalo shooter happen. The leaked documents reveal that they did it so they could push their anti-gun agenda, and they're going to continue to let these things happen. Protect yourself. Shh, you didn't hear it from me.